Hello and welcome back. Now, before we end this section, there's one last thing we need to take a look at, which is the inter-process communication. Now, we've seen communication between the client and API gateway and our microservices, which all uses HTTP, HTTPS, that is the request response. But now, let's just briefly look at communication between the microservices. So communication between auths and notification, users and gigs, communications like that. So microservices uses the inter-process communications within their processes, okay? Because each microservice run on its own process, and now it uses the inter-process communication to communicate. Now, one way to do it is you can use HTTP. It's possible. I've said that before. You can use HTTP to send a request and get a response from one microservice to the other. It is possible. Okay. So probably mostly if you check online, you will always see or mostly see documentation talking about using event-driven, using RabbitMQ or Kafka. Okay. You can also use the synchronous approach, which is HTTP or HTTPS to communicate. It's possible. But for our own case, the communications will all be event driven. I've said that before. Okay. So now let's take a look at how it will be. So the inter-process communication between microservices. So first, for the notification service. Now, it's going to involve two things. It's going to involve sending and receiving. Okay. So the event is going to be sending an event by the service or receiving an event. Now, for the notification service, it's not going to send any events to any microservice, but it's going to receive events from the auth service. It's going to receive events from other service. It's going to receive events from chat service. Okay, so the notification service will not send any events to other microservices, but it will receive events from auth, other, and chat service. Okay, then the next one is the auth service. Now the auth service will only send requests to the notification service and the users service, but it will not receive notifications from any other service. Okay, so the auth service will send requests or events to notification service. It will send event to user service, but it will not receive event from any other service. Okay, the next is the users service. Now the user service, it will send an event to the gig service. Okay, so maybe to update a gig, okay, we're going to send an event from the user service to the gig service. It is also going to receive events from the auth service. It's going to receive from the other service. It's going to also receive from the gig service and the review service. Okay, now don't worry if you don't really understand what I'm talking about here. Once we get to the implementation part, you'll start understanding. Okay, so the user service will only send an event. The communication is going to communicate with the gig service by sending an event to the gig. It's also going to communicate with the auth service by receiving an event. It's going to communicate with the other service by receiving the gig service also and the review service. Then the next is the gig service. The gig service will only send to the user service and also receive from the user service. Okay, those are the only two. That is the only service that is going to communicate with. Okay, so the gig service will not send any information or any event to the auth service or the notification service, only to the user service. Then the chat service. The chat service will only send events to the notification service. It's not going to receive events from any other service. Okay, so the way they are described here, that is how we are going to implement them. Okay, and then we have the other service. The other service will send an event to the user service, will send to the notification service, and then it will also receive from the review service. Now, it's not going to send to the auth service. Okay, it's not going to send to the chat service, only sending to users and notification, and then receive from the review service. And then lastly, the review service, it will only send to the user service and the auth and the other service. It's not going to receive any event from any other service. Okay, so this is how the intercommunication or interprocess communication within the service will look like. Okay, we are going to implement all of this, and we are going to use RabbitMQ. Okay, so we're going to use RabbitMQ to send an event. Okay, sending an event as a producer and then listening for an event as a consumer. Okay, so send here represents a producer, so, and then receiver represents consumer. So here in the auth service, it's going to produce events, okay, to the notification service. It's going to produce events to the user service. And then here, the user service is going to consume events from the auth service, consume events from the other gig and review service. Okay, so this is how the intercommunication process will look. As you can see here, there's not going to be any HTTP request made to any service. Like I've said before, I'm repeating it again. It's possible you can use HTTP, okay? But if you go online, search, most of the tutorials you're going to see, documentation, they will likely use events, maybe Kafka or RabbitMQ or some other type of messaging queue. But for us, we are going to be using RabbitMQ.